Hello, everyone. It's Will, and I'm here with another tarot reading. Today, we're going to ask the question, what do you need to be aware of right now? What message do you need to hear right now? And so I've chosen quite a number of decks for us to work with. And I've also pulled out the Witches Runes deck that I've recently acquired, and I'm going to throw that into the mix too. I think it'll be fun to use it. So for pile one here on the left, we've got Tarot Nuage, and I've paired that with the Desert Rose Selenite. In the middle, we have the Medieval Scapini Tarot, and I've paired that with Fluorite. And then on the right, I've got Tarot of the Abyss, and I've paired that with some black agate. Let me get a little smoke on these cards, and then we will shuffle and pull some significators and get into the readings. All right, so I'm going to set these aside. These are the Witches Runes cards. I'll pull those out for each reading. For group one, Tarot Nuage, paired with the Desert Rose Selenite, let's pull your significator. And so I'd like you to think about your current situation, wherever you're at right now, and choose the significator card that seems to most closely align with what you're thinking about at the moment, okay? And of course, as usual, if we get a jumper, we will use the jumper. So group one, your significator is strength. Strength is your significator. So if you feel like you are strong, this could be your pile, but also if you feel like you need strength, something to do with not being strong enough, not being able to be yourself, needing to take a risk, feeling like you can't, or maybe you've recently taken a risk of some kind and now you're wondering what you need to know about that situation that has developed, that would make sense too. Group two with the Medieval Scapini Tarot, let's get you a significator. All right, let's see what we've got. Group two, Four of Cups. Four of Cups. So, do you feel focused? Do you feel emotionally stable, or is that something you're trying to manifest? Maybe there's a sense of apathy that can sometimes come up with the Four of Cups. Like maybe you're just not feeling it right now, and you're wondering what you need to sort of get things moving again, get things going again, maybe with a relationship or your creativity. Any of that would make sense for Four of Cups. And then group three, you are going to be Tarot of the Abyss, paired with the black agate. Let's get a significator. Okay. Eight of Swords. Eight of Swords for group three. So are you feeling stuck, defensive, maybe trying to figure out what you can do to get out of a certain situation that you're in? Maybe you're overthinking things. Maybe you feel like you don't have the power you need. You're feeling kind of powerless or downtrodden. That would fit with Eight of Swords as well. So here are our three significators paired with their stones. Let me review them. Of course, the timestamps are below if you want to jump right in. Strength for group 1, paired with the desert rose selenite. That's tarot nuage. 4 of cups for group 2, paired with fluorite. That's the medieval Scapini tarot. And for group 3, tarot of the abyss, 8 of swords, paired with black agate. All right, timestamps are below, and I will see you in your reading to answer the question, what do you need to be aware of right now? See you there. Hello, Group 1, and welcome to your reading. You chose Strength paired with the Desert Rose Selenite. Let me set that aside. I'm going to prop Strength right up here as it looks down over the reading. And in a moment, we'll start pulling cards from the main deck, Tarot Nuage. But first, I want to set those aside and work with the Witch's Runes, this little deck that I've recently got and have been using and really like. So these cards are going to give us some context for your reading. We're going to pull them at the top of the reading. We're going to pull 3 of them. I do incorporate reversals with this deck. Reversed cards indicate things you are not aware of. Upright cards indicate things you are more aware of, okay? So we're going to pull 3 runes, and the 3 runes are going to provide context for what it is that you need to be aware of right now. That one jumped out, so I'm going to pull those cards. That feels right to me. So these are the context for your reading. So this last one is upright, so I'm going to start with it. These 2 are reversed. Black. So this is some kind of drawback or negative influence that you've got. So since you chose strength, I'm suspecting that you understand, you know, that there's something coming up that is an obstacle for you, that is not necessarily a great problem, but that is something you're going to have to overcome, right? And so you're aware of that, and you know that you need the strength to overcome that problem. What are the things you don't know? Scarab. This is about comfort. This is about spirituality. This is about intuitive messages. And the moon is about either a woman or a feminine person, or about a phase. So I would read this as you are in or entering into some kind of spiritual phase, right? A period of spirituality or intuitive phase, if that language makes more sense to you. But there is some negative influence coming up, and you need the strength to overcome that negative influence, okay? So these are the context cards we'll start with. Let's shuffle the Tarot Nuage now, and let's ask some questions. I have all kinds of questions about this at the moment. So some sort of spiritual phase, or it could be a spiritual woman. Moon, scarab can mean a spiritual woman. And she maybe has some bad influence that she needs to overcome with her strength. So let's ask more about this obstacle, this negative influence. What is that? Let's pull 3 cards from our main deck today. Tell us, please, about this negative influence that is coming up. That's what I want to know about to start. What is this negative influence? The Star, 3 of Coins, Four of Chalices. So, the Star is usually a very optimistic card, right? It is sort of the card of optimism. It's about seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, having hope, especially finding direction, right? Another way of reading the Star, if we're trying to understand what this negative influence is, one way of doing that would be to look at this figure on the card and see that they are pouring out water from their two vessels, right? One in each hand. But one of the vessels they're pouring right back into the ocean or lake, whatever body of water that is. And so sometimes that's read in terms of balance, right? But I would also ask, like, are they doing something unnecessary? Do they need to be pouring water back into the ocean where it came from? Or are they maybe like doing work or some activity that actually doesn't need to happen? That's not helping to solve their problem in any way. And so that's the first thing that comes to mind with negative influences here is there some way in which you are doing something that you actually don't need to be doing that you could stop doing? Okay. Three of Coins makes me think that this could have to do with working with other people, right? It could actually be at a job, but it wouldn't have to be. It's just any kind of practical anything that you're doing with others, right? So any way in which you're collaborating, working to build something with others, right? Even around the house, if it's not at work, or if you volunteer somewhere, something like that. Any of that would make sense. And then we've got Four of Chalices, which can mean emotional stability. And so I wonder here if the negative influence is that you are trying to provide all of the emotional stability into a collaborative situation with other people, and you're pouring too much of yourself out in order to keep things stable. And maybe the issue is you need to have the strength to realize that you're not responsible for making everybody else's feelings okay. Does that make sense? And so maybe that's the negative influence that we've got coming up for you here, is that you're sort of being the emotional what's regulator for everybody in your group in order to keep things going, and you're pouring too much of yourself out, and maybe it's time to take a risk and not do that anymore. That's the first thing that comes to mind looking through these cards. So let's ask a follow-up question about what you need to be aware of right now. And I'm interested in now these two cards, Moon and Scarab, which I could interpret either as a spiritual phase, right? Like a moment where you're being very spiritual or emotionally intuitive or whatever language you want to use there. Um, or this could be an actual person. The moon card could represent an actual spiritual person. And so let's ask, with three more cards from the deck, what is the scarab card here that represents comfort, spirituality? It can also represent like ancestors, the afterlife, stuff like that. Um, what is that representing here that's leading you up to this negative influence in which it seems like you are being the emotional barometer for a group? King of Cups, the High Priestess, Ace of Coins. So, having power over your own emotions, but also the emotions of others. Learning or feeling maybe like you have to keep your mouth closed about certain things, not express everything that you know, and doing that in order to get some kind of material result in the real world, right? So the King of Chalices is someone who is very diplomatic, who knows how to express their emotions and their ideas in a way that other people will understand, right? But sometimes the King of Chalices has to modify their feelings or hold back their feelings in a certain way in order to make them socially acceptable to others, right? And that can wear down the King of Chalices. Sometimes I get tired of doing that, right? And so I wonder if that's something that might be happening with you. Like you you are feeling things in this situation, this group situation with other people, and instead of saying what you really think, you're saying what's socially acceptable to say, right? Which means you're holding back a certain uh, amount of your knowledge and your feelings, your intuition, even, right? And that can be great. Like the ability, the high priestess's ability to know something and not broadcast it all over everywhere is her strength, right? But when that is no longer healthy for her or good for her, she needs to speak up. It's time for her to say something, right? And I'm wondering if that's maybe what's happening here is it's not that you necessarily need the strength to keep quiet. Maybe you're really good at that. Maybe the issue is you need the strength to speak out. That's kind of the sense that I'm getting with this reading. So let's pull 3 more because now I'm wondering, like, what should you be doing here? Um, let's make sure that I'm on the right track. And so let's ask with the next 3 cards, what action should you be taking or trying to take to make the most of this situation? 6 of Chalices, King of Wands, 2 of Coins. All right. We'll come back to the 6 of Chalices in a moment. Let's talk about the King of Wands first, because we had a King of Chalices come up just a moment ago, and he's the one who's good at mastering his feelings and diplomatically explaining uh, issues to other people, right? Uh, King of Wands, the cards are saying instead of being the King of Chalices, you should be more like the King of Wands, right? And the King of Wands is more fiery, knows how to channel their own impulses. The King of Wands is able to put a lid on their impulses, but they also know when is the right time, when it's appropriate to act impulsively, right? And to just like in the moment, if you have a thought, say it, right? And so I think that is what is being expressed to you is instead of sort of going with the flow, like the King of Chalices, um, maybe don't just go with the flow. That might be the strength you need. I also think of the way in which the strength card is often associated with Leo, right? Because there's a lion. In this deck, it's not as recognizable as being a lion, but it does have a big mane, and it's got whiskers, and it's kind of a lion, right? So Leo, and then the King of Wands is also often a card associated with Leo, right? And so think of the way that Leo, like the lion, wouldn't just keep quiet about an issue or a problem to make other people feel good, like the King of Chalices might do if he thought it was for his own benefit, right? So be a little more King of Wands like, a little less King of Chalices like. That's the message that I'm getting here so far for you. With the Six of Chalices, I'm thinking about the way these flowers seem to have withered. And in other decks, if we were looking at a different deck, I would have a different interpretation of this card, but I do like to try to read what's actually in front of me, because the fact that you chose this reading with this deck as opposed to another one is meaningful, right? And so with the Six of Chalices here, there's all of these flowers that were trying to grow and that to some extent did grow, right? But now they're wilting. And I don't know that they're dead. I think that maybe they could be revived again. But they need some nourishment, right? In order to sort of get back on the right path forward. And so I think what you need to do here is nourish the flowers, so to speak. And I don't think withholding your feelings is probably the way to do that. With the Six of Chalices, I also think of memories and nostalgia and the past. And so, is there any way in which the way things used to be, remembering the way things used to be, could help you act now in the present moment in order to change things, make things different? The Two of Coins here at the end of this string, obviously I'm thinking about the Ace of Coins that ended the previous string and the way that the two then is doubling it, right? And so it's kind of telling me you're going to get twice as many results. It'll be twice as good as it was if you can pull this off, of being more King of Wands like and maybe nourishing without withholding your feelings, and that you'll still sort of be juggling a little bit, or maybe you'll have a choice of some kind that will need to be made. But instead of one coin, you're going to end up with two. So at least you're sort of doubling your money, so to speak. Okay, that's pretty good. But I want to do one more question, and I'm just thinking of where we should take this to end. Um, how about we ask, if you are able to gather your strength and change a little bit about the way you're interacting with these other people, what is the best possible outcome from that? What is the best possible outcome here? Page of Swords. The Tower. Nine of Chalices. Okay, I don't think we really need to be afraid of the Tower in this particular situation, but the Page of Swords is not a king. The other court cards we've seen come up here have been, of course, kings. And so there's a sense here that the best outcome is that everybody is going to be learning something new, right? I think the Page of Swords is very much about learning. Swords are about the mind. Pages are sort of the lowest rank in the suit in terms of the court cards. And so everybody will have some new growth of the mind happening. There'll be able to be a kind of starting fresh, right? And why is that going to be possible? Well, because the structures, the routines that you have built up with this group of people, whoever they are, these other people, those are going to come crashing down, right? If you have the strength to stop being the emotional regulator of the group and speak your mind a little more, be more like King of Wands instead of King of Chalices, then things have to fall apart in order to rebuild them. But what is the result of that? It's nine chalices, right? Attainment of happiness, great satisfaction. We can also read this traditionally as the wish card. You're going to get your wish, right? And so all good things, I think, ending in this situation if you can take some of the steps that the cards have outlined for you here. Okay, let me know which cards resonated for you. Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear about it, what your reaction to this reading was. And please consider liking and subscribing if you got something out of this. I'd love to hear it. And I'll end it there. Thanks so much. Have a great day. I hope that you can channel the power of the Strength card. And I will see you in your next reading. Bye, everyone. Hello, Group 2, and welcome to your reading. You chose the Four of Cups paired with the Fluorite, and we're using the Medieval Scapini Tarot. I'll just set that aside for us. I've also got the Witch's Runes here, and so we're going to pull from that deck in just a moment for context for this reading. Let me put the Four of Cups right up here. And I'll set aside the Medieval Scapini just for a moment. Since you chose the Four of Cups, I'm thinking maybe you're feeling a little jaded, or it could be emotionally bored in a relationship or life in general. Maybe you're kind of in a funk. It can also just mean emotional stability, like maybe you feel really emotionally stable right now, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? That can be a really good thing. But let's pull these Witch's Runes cards and get some context for what this Four of Coins is on about in your current situation so that we can figure out what it is you need to be aware of right now. Okay. We'll lay out 3 Witch's Runes. Okay, let's see what we've got. Wind. Wind brings change. Can be relief, can be, change depends on where you're at now, right? If things are good, change can be better, or change could be worse, and I suppose the same is true if things are bad, right? The sun can be a masculine person, or just happiness, success, warmth, sun. And black is going to be a negative influence of some kind. All the cards were upright, so there isn't anything here that you're too terribly unaware of. So it looks like you've got some kind of negative influence or obstacle or little struggle that is coming up. That's what I would see with this black stone, this black rune. There's a change happening. Maybe it's related to a person. Some change with a person that is causing some problem for you, some small problem for you. This isn't like the snake rune, for example, would be a big lie or deception, that kind of thing. When it's the black stone, it's just some kind of negative influence, right? So not necessarily something huge or scary. If the sun's not representing a person, it could just be a change in your current state of happiness, right? Because of some negative influence. And so this black stone came up in the previous reading today in the same position, which, this is a very small deck, the Witch's Rune, so that's not unheard of, but it is only the second time that I've used it on this channel. And so seeing it in the same position twice is noteworthy to me. If any of you watched the first group reading, then you'll know that it was there. So I'm going to start much like I did in that previous reading, which was to ask about this black stone and what it means. And so let's take our Medieval Scapini Tarot and give it a little shuffle, and we'll start by laying out 3 cards to answer the question, what do you need to be aware of regarding this negative influence that is represented by Number 13, the black stone from the witch's runes. So that's our first question. Describe for us, please, what this black stone is. And then we'll lay out additional cards depending on what we get. All right. Six cups. Five swords. Two cups. So we're all about cups today. So a relationship, thinking that because of the Two of Cups that's shown up, doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, although it very well could be. But I think there's likely something going on, you and another person, right? I'm thinking back to the winds and the sun and the black stone. So there's something going on between you and some other person. There's a change that's happened, and it's creating a negative influence. And so what is the nature of that change? Well, Six of Cups can be thinking about the past, having memories of the past, that something in the past is coming up again, or there's some being stuck in the past in some way, or wishing things were in the present like they used to be in the past. That would be a possible interpretation here. And Five of Swords is about some kind of conflict that has come up, likely between you, where maybe one person did something to the other, maybe not even necessarily on purpose. It can be an accident with the Five of Swords, but like somebody did something that really made the other person hurt, right? And so maybe there's a feeling like, oh, I wish we could go back to the way things were before that happened, because it sort of put a damper on the relationship that we've got, right? In between all of these cups cards, we've got all these swords, and we notice the progression from six cups, which can also, six can mean harmony, perfection, right, down to two cups, which is sometimes about having to make a choice. It can be a partnership too, right? But with cups, we want to see cups increasing, right? We want to end up with more cups at the end, and it looks like we've lost some. Not completely, we've still got two, right? But we haven't got the six that maybe we started out with, and so there's maybe a feeling here that whatever conflict has happened has decreased the fulfillment, the happiness of the current situation. So let's ask a follow-up question now. I want to know about what this conflict is in the Five of Swords. Like, what happened? Let's get a little more insight into what happened to upset things between you and this other person. So that's what we will get an answer to with the next three cards. What was this conflict? Maybe it was about money. If not money, some other resource, not spending enough time together, not making enough plans together, not having enough energy for one another. Nine Swords, anxiety, maybe trouble sleeping, regret, maybe someone has some regrets, and the Hermit, loneliness, searching for something. So some actually existing material reality thing that somebody had anxiety about, right? Like time, money, energy. that somebody had anxiety about has led to a sense of loneliness. So, like, the most obvious example here, given the cards that we're seeing, would be one person's just like not being available enough to the other, right? Like maybe they're always working, or they're with other people, or their friends, or like whatever it might be. And so that's creating a sense of anxiety and tension, and making the other person feel really lonely, and like they're needing to search for something that would fulfill them, and they're not getting it in this other person, right? And so I think that's where the conflict is coming from. So let's go back to the original question, which is, what is it that you need to be aware of? Right? If you're feeling like probably the relationship is kind of at a standstill, right? With Four of Cups, that it's not going anywhere right now. Maybe one of you is kind of apathetic about everything, and it's like maybe it's gotten boring, or it's at a plateau, and you're like, how do I get it to go forward again? And so that's, I think, what I want to ask next is, what is it you need to be aware of right now? And I want to ask, how do you get the relationship going again, so that no one's feeling lonely or anxious, or like the other person doesn't have enough time for them, or energy for them, or money for them. So that's what we'll ask next. How can you get things going again? Queen of Coins. Seven of Wands. King of Wands. So we've got a couple, a king and a queen. Queen of Coins, King of Wands. And between them is the Seven of Wands. So Seven of Wands can be about a struggle. It can be about, I get the feeling that maybe there are some emotions that are not being expressed, and they might be some fiery emotions. And so maybe they need to come out, right? Maybe there's something that's being held back a little bit, and the only way to get things going again is going to be to express them right out. That rings true a little bit with some of the stuff that came up in the first reading today. But Four of Cups, we're thinking of the stability of emotions and wateriness, right? And Wands, of course, are fire. And so the question was, how can you get things going again? Well, if you've got a bunch of water, you need to turn it into fire. And that's how you're going to get things going again. So there needs to be passion. There needs to be the expression of things. There needs to be more impulsiveness, excitement, stimulation, rather than introspection and going with the flow and hanging on to things, and just like feeling without necessarily expressing what you're feeling. And so I'm thinking the Seven of Wands here is your clue that that needs to happen, and that it might be kind of uncomfortable depending on what kind of person you are, right? If you're more the King of Wands type of person, and I suspect one of you is, then you might be okay with that. And so I suspect that one of you is maybe already kind of doing that. Like one of you isn't really holding back too much, but whoever the Queen of Coins is, I wonder if she is so invested in keeping things stable, in maintaining security of the relationship, making sure everybody feels safe. I wonder if that can go a little bit too far, and she, I think, would she or he, right? It could be a person of any gender. Any of the court cards can. She might struggle to be fiery, right? If you think of Queen of Coins, coins are earth, right? And if you throw earth on a fire, the fire will go out, right? Not as fast as it would with water, probably. And the fire does need some solid base to burn on, right? That could be earth too. But I think Queen of Coins are more sort of intuitive and emotionally grounded and connected people than a King of Wands person would be. And so I think the Queen of Coins is going to struggle more with letting the fieriness out that is necessary, I think, here in this particular relationship for these two people to move beyond their Four of Cups situation where things are okay, I guess, but they're not really going anywhere, and maybe there's some apathy or boredom, and like, what's the next step here? And so there's going to need to be a change in how these two people are relating to one another, I think. So let's pull one more string of cards, 3 more, and I want to know where, let's see, how should I phrase it? Not just where is this going, but best case scenario, if the two of you can find a way to add some passion, excitement, stimulation, fire into the relationship so that it's not so stagnant, what's the best case outcome for this relationship? Eight of Coins, so you can work on it together, right? You can build something real and practical and valuable together. Seven of Coins, but you'll have to accept one another's differences. Two of Wands, because to some extent you're at a crossroads. There is a choice that needs to be made about where this relationship is headed. That's the sense I'm getting here, right? So you're going to need to decide whether this relationship, whether you can accept one another's differences or not, right? That it's not like you're totally incompatible, but one or both of you, probably both of you would be the best way to phrase it, is going to need to do some adjusting, I think, and there's going to need to be some active work involved in order to make this thing last long term in a way that won't leave one or both of you emotionally bored, right, or unsatisfied, or stagnant, however we'd like to phrase it. So that's what I would say, is there's a choice to be made here about, by both of you, really, I would hope together, about the extent to which you are each willing to put in that effort to make some changes, one for the other, and at the same time to accept one another's idiosyncrasies and differences. All right, I'm going to end it there. Let me know in the comments what resonated for you, and please consider liking and subscribing if you got something out of this reading. I'd love to hear about it. And I hope you have a great day. I hope that your Four of Cups situation improves and that the two of you are able to work things out together. And have a great day. Be well, and I'll see you in your next reading. Hello, Group 3, and welcome to your reading. You chose the Eight of Swords as the significator. We've got black agate as your crystal. I'll just set that aside. And I've pulled out also the Witch's runes. I'm going to put the Eight of Swords right up here so that we can clearly see it. And to start, I'm going to put the Tarot of the Abyss to the side, and we're going to get some context for the reading using just the Witch's Tarot. And so let me give these a little shuffle, and I'll flip some over. The cards that come up reversed indicate things you're not totally aware of. Right side up indicate things you are more aware of. And because Eight of Swords is the significator for this reading, you probably are feeling kind of stuck, like you don't know what to do, what to think, how to move forward. Maybe you feel like it's all in your head, but you don't know if it's all in your head. How can you use what you've already got to get out of this situation? All of those things potentially come up when I think Eight of Swords. All right, let's pull 3 cards from the Witch's runes. These will give us context for the reading. All right, I'm going to start with the middle card and the card on the right because they, because they are upright, and then we'll go to the first card, which is reversed. So, spears, this is conflict, an argument, discussion, some friction between you and someone else, or between 2 different parties, right? So friction, argument. Oh, white, but white's a blessing. Like, it's gonna turn out to be okay, most likely. And so it seems like this is what you know. You know that there's been some conflict, but you feel like everything's gonna be fine. But what you don't know, okay, H is a pretty big setback. And so it seems like there's something that you're not aware of, where you know there's been friction and it looks like it's going to turn out okay, but there's something you are unaware of that has to do with this friction, this argument. And this is H. H is the 3rd rune, and it's sort of a card you don't really ever want to see, and yet here we are. So we will start with that as we begin the reading. So let's push these up. And you know there's been an argument or friction, disagreement, but it looks like it's all going to be fine, but there's something you're unaware of. Or maybe you know there's something you're unaware of, but you don't know how much you should be worried about it. And so let's use the Tarot of the Abyss to ask the question, what is this thing related to the argument or friction or disagreement that you are not totally aware of? And so we'll pull 3 cards from Tarot of the Abyss, and they will answer that question. And then we will pull more cards depending on what we get to develop the reading more fully. So what is it that you are not aware of, represented by the H rune, that's connected to the disagreement, argument, and I will lay 3 cards here. Knight of Wands. Ten of Pentacles. So, somebody doing something with money? And Queen of Wands. All right. So we've got the Queen of Wands and the Knight of Wands looking across at one another in one another's direction. And between them, we've got 10 pentacles representing money, time, energy, resources of some kind. Something in the material world, and it's probably a lot of it because it's 10, which is the most that you can have on any one card. So whatever this disagreement was about, it seems like you aren't totally aware maybe of the fact that it's part of a larger conversation about whatever this resource represents. Like, was there some disagreement about something, but it's not actually totally clear to you that that something is related to a whole bunch of money or a whole lot of the way that someone is spending their time or their energy, and it's not clear to you. And so the Knight and the Queen would be two people in a relationship or sort of from the same metaphorical family, like an actual family, or it could be a workplace or any kind of situation where it's two people who are sort of in the same group, right? So I need a little more information, and I'm just thinking about how I want to phrase the next question. So let's ask, you need to be aware of this setback represented by the H rune, which has to do with some resource between these two people, between the Knight of Wands and the Queen of Wands, and you're not fully aware of what's going on with it. So, and you're feeling stuck. So let's ask, what could you be doing? What action what is the best action you can take in the near future in this situation to either conserve this resource or make sure that this resource is used in the right way? So the question, to restate it, is, what's the best thing you could be doing right now? Three of Wands, that could be just wait. Eight of Wands, but that does not mean wait. That means busy, busy, busy. King of Swords. So there's some other person involved here with the King of Swords. And the King of Swords would have the ability to, like, make a judgment or mediate between these two people who might be arguing over this resource. Okay, so Three of Wands would suggest maybe you think you've done everything you can do, and you're just waiting to see how it all plays out, right? But I asked, what should you be doing now? And the next card is the Eight of Wands, and that's clearly saying, don't just sit around and wait to see what it is that you could be doing. I think what you need to do is get somebody else involved, someone who has some authority here, either like actual authority, like legal authority, like the King of Swords could be a lawyer, for example, or if it's a situation where that wouldn't make any sense, it could just be somebody that you think these other people will listen to. King of Swords is a very good communicator, and so is there somebody in this situation that you could go to sort of help communicate, work through this dispute? whatever it might be. But don't just sit around and do nothing. If you see on the Eight of Wands the way that the geese, right? Geese are forming a V and they're kind of making an arrow that points directly to the King of Swords. It's saying, like, don't sit around and wait for your ship to come in. Instead of that, you need to get really busy moving towards, making progress towards this King of Swords person who needs to get involved in the situation in whatever capacity it might be. Because that, I think, is how you're going to end up getting to the white stone, blessing, purification, happy outcome, good influences kind of ending here for this Eight of Swords moment. So if you are feeling stuck in the middle, right? I don't know, and I'm, it will be different for each one of you who's watching this, which of these figures best represents you. But I suspect that you either feel like you're one of these two court cards and like there's some dispute about a resource, money, energy, or time, right? The Ten of Pentacles. And you feel like stuck, like you don't know what to do about it. Well, and I think it's probably just that. I doubt you're the King of Swords, although I suppose in some cases you could be. But I suspect more you're one of these other two folks, and the answer to the question of what you need to be aware of in order to get out of this situation is there's a third party who needs to get involved, and they're represented by the King of Swords. So there's someone who has some authority. The other people will listen to them. They've got a sword, right? So they can like cause trouble for people who don't listen, who don't follow their directions, follow their orders, whatever it might be. And so I think that rather than waiting around to just see what happens, you need to get busy, you need to take quick action. This is swiftness, and get this third person involved. So let's say that you do that. Let's ask, what is likely to be the next development if you get this King of Swords person involved? What is likely to develop from that? Nine of Pentacles. Okay, so somebody getting a bunch of that resource. Like if this is an argument about money, somebody is going to get enough. Nine is enough, like plenty. Not too much, but plenty. Two of Swords. There will be a choice. This can be an argument. Two of Swords makes me think back to the spears, two spears crossing. And Three of Cups, celebrating with friends. Or emotional growth, or both of those things. So, the next likely development is that I am inclined to think, like the feeling I'm getting is that you, if you get this third person involved, are going to get everything that you deserve, right? In a good way, right? I guess that could be read as like, you're going to get what you deserve, right? Like in a threatening almost kind of way. But what I'm trying to say is everything you need to support your well-being, right? The Nine of Pentacles is someone who, they've got this beautiful garden, they've got everything they need to make them happy, even a couple of luxuries, right? They are comfortable. They can be solitary, or if not actually solitary, very comfortable on their own. They're very independent, right? And that is likely to come from this, but it's not going to be without a bit of a fight with the Two of Swords, there may be some focus, some determination that's needed in order for this all to work out. And, you know, somebody, if someone wins, someone else may need to lose. Three of Cups, though, suggests that it wouldn't be you, right? That you would, you know, go out for drinks with some friends after all this is through because you'll have something good to celebrate. So, let's see. I didn't ask for the final outcome, though, did I? I asked for what the next development will be. So will this last? Will the attaining of all good things leading to an argument, but also a celebration, so will that last? Let me just rephrase it as, what will the final outcome be? Or what is the final outcome likely to be if you can get a third party involved to unstick yourself from this situation? Five Pentacles. But the World. Five Cups. Okay. So I want to focus on the World because it means completion. That whatever this issue is, it's going to not last forever, right? It's going to come to a conclusion, a resolution. It's going to terminate, and it will sort of come full circle, so to speak. Five of Pentacles does suggest that maybe these 9 Pentacles that you seem to have acquired either aren't going to last as long as you had expected them to, or that like I'm imagining a situation where if the King of Swords were an attorney, that then you get that person's bill, right? Like you win 9 Pentacles out of the situation, but then you have to pay 4 of them to the attorney, and so you've only got 5. And so there's some sense maybe of disappointment that comes afterwards, although I still think we're talking about success. Although the Five of Cups might suggest like maybe your relationship with this other person, whoever they are, has been permanently damaged. And so there's a little bit of a feeling of sadness or grieving because you are not going to have that relationship, or at least the same kind of relationship with that person going into the future. You'll still have these 2 good cups to fulfill you, but there will be a moment where there's maybe some disappointment, some sadness about how everything has turned out, even if in the end you've been successful, right? You know, you've gotten the World, right? Even if there's been some disappointments along the way, right? Okay, I'm going to end it there. Let me know in the comments what resonated for you about this reading, which cards stood out in particular, and please consider liking and subscribing if you'd like to help me grow the channel. I'd appreciate it. I wish you all the very best in unsticking yourself from your 8 of Swords situation and getting the best possible outcome here. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Be well, and I will see you in your next reading.